Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very special episode of the show with a very special guest. We welcome back to Sea of Tranquility for the first time in about 3 years, maybe a little more, Mr. Steve Morse, guitarist, songwriter, legend from the Dixie Dregs, Steve Morse Band, Deep Purple, Kansas, you name it, he's done it. Steve, welcome back to SOT. So happy to have you back, dude.
Thank you. And hello, everybody.
Glad to see you. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about because, as most of you may know, Steve is taking the Dixie Dregs out on tour once again, along with the Steve Morse Band. You're doing double duty here, Steve. How's that going to work?
Well, sometimes you look at what you have promised to do or uh, promise yourself to do first before you look at what's convenient and easy. And that's exactly what happened. When I got done with Purple, the plan was for us to do dates, with the Steve Morse Band. However, right about the time when Janine was still alive, and we thought everything was going great. Um, Frank had asked about doing some shows and hinted that Jordan might be able to fill in if Owski couldn't, and Owski couldn't. Steve Davidowski, our first keyboard player on Freefall, he did the reunion tour, the 40-year reunion tour since that album. However, he already had plans and a lot going on for this tour, so with Jordan being available and this being kind of, like an eclipse thing, it lines up just every once in a while. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, I couldn't say no to doing that, but I couldn't, break my word to myself about what we were going to do with the trio. So the only solution was I told Frank and the guys, I said, look, I already told the guys, and we already had the understanding we're going to go out after the purple thing had ended for me. And so they were cool. And everybody knows each other. We've done this before, by the way, back 12 years ago, 15 years ago, some number of years ago. And so I guess the challenge is just, getting into good enough shape to make it through all the sets. And I've been to
Is
that
your
end.
is your wrist up for the challenge, Steve? I'm sure it
My
is.
my wrist is. I've got lots of different strategies and things, and like today we went through the set, Dave and I, and it's not going to be a surprise when we play a bunch of music at these shows because we've been rehearsing that way. Having said that, you can never um, rehearse the same as a gig is. With the amount of effort you put out is more for a gig because there's all those people, that have spent their time and energy and literally money out of their checking account to make, to enjoy some great musical experience with you. And you better be there to deliver. So I take it very seriously on that front. And like I said, you put out more energy. So we'll see. If I don't think there's going to be any ambulances behind the stage or anything like that.
How
There may
long?
be some.
So you guys basically going to be doing like two, like almost like headline sets for the most part, like an hour plus for each
No,
band.
no, it's going to be a shorter set for the Steve Morse Band,
Okay.
and then kind of like what we did when we opened for G3.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. So you, Dave, and Van for the Steve Morse Band. Can you tell everybody about the full lineup for the Dixie Dregs for this tour?
Yes, uh, Andy West. He's the one that I really started the Dregs with. We were in a band called Dixie Grit, and Dixie Grit was not what it sounds like. We were kids. We didn't know anything about how words suggest images and marketing and stuff like that. we just thought it was funny because here we were, guys that were not from the South, stuck in the South, been transplanted there by our parents moving. And so we just thought it was funny. The grits. When people first go to the South, they're like, grits, that's so weird. And people eat those things. And here I am now, what, you don't have any grits for breakfast? And anyway, I've assimilated it anyway. But back to the point, we called the band Dixie Grit, and it was wildly unpopular with all the guys' girlfriends that came to our gigs. I mean, I'm not saying they hated it. I'm saying they really hated it. So we felt, the band didn't last too long, but I think we really came out with some good music. It was like early prog rock. And the guys got kind of discouraged by the fact that we did some gigs and, had good energy in front and stuff, but it wasn't ever going to be a mainstream thing.
Not
And Andy
necessarily,
and I,
not necessarily chick music, right, Steve? Come on, we can say
no, not at all. Well, actually, some of it, if people just listen with open minds, we had vocals and everything. Frank Brittingham, great singer and great writer. But anyway, it was not meant to be. So when the band broke up, Andy and I wanted to keep doing weird stuff and go further weird and just do instrumental stuff. That's because I was in my mind, I was thinking, I really want to be a composer. That's what I want to do. So he said, "Well, we're the dregs of what's left, so let's call it Dixie Dregs." And we both laughed. And two guys laughing at a suggestion, that's enough. That's enough to seal the deal. That's the name of the band, right? No thought whatsoever that all through our next decades, people will be saying it doesn't sound like Dixieland music or whatever, or you guys aren't really a country band. There's too much rock in there, too much jazz and too much classical. So we just, back when names kind of did matter, we didn't think it did. But so Dixie Dregs started with Andy and I, Andy West, and he was like he's a very creative guy, but he would let me, come up with all the musical suggestions. And sometimes we work on stuff together, like on the travel tunes. Uh, he took that riff that we had been playing and and ran with it. But for the most part, like 90 something percent of the music, that Andy's always let me bring it to the band. So we had different drummers. Gilbert Frere was first in Augusta, and Gilbert would drive all the way from Aiken, South Carolina, just to rehearse with us,
Wow.
and bring his drums in the back of his Gremlin. And we did some gigs, and it was really cool. And the guy's girlfriend still hated it when we did a concert at a theater at the college, and it went over really well, I thought. But there was a certain segment of the audience that was yawning, and that didn't discourage me at all, because what I went by was what's the kind of like what's the compositional value later on when we moved to Miami, because I was going to school there at the University of Miami, and we met the other guys on drums, Rod Morgenstein, violin, Alan Sloan, and we had a bunch of different keyboard players because keyboard players could get lots of gigs. And one thing the Dregs didn't have, we weren't called the Dregs down in Miami. We were called the Rock Ensemble, University of Miami Rock Ensemble #2. That was the official designation because I had lobbied to be the quote instructor of a small group and be the leader of the small group. And to do that, you had to be the instructor. And somehow I got, to that point, and I would joke around about, reducing the guys' grades if they didn't, show up prepared for the next rehearsal. And I did have to give them a grade, by the way, every semester. Anyway, the gigs were few and far between that paid, but sometimes we would play for free outside. And one time we got like $11 each as a payment for going and playing at a park in Miami. And those kind of gigs, I remember very distinctly watching people. What what kind of melody makes everybody listen, stop and listen, and what's the thing that makes them walk away? Now I was taking the concept of dregs, you know, sort of mainstream in a way. I was trying to just to see what music I like to make, what I like to write that would appeal to people. And I found out that people like shorter songs. They like m- definitely melodic uh, lines with variety, but not going out too far, not going out for too long, and not soloing for too long. So put all these together, and you see kind of pretty much a template of how I think of arrangements for instrumental music, and that worked real well. And from then on, we had guys could bring their girlfriends to the clubs, and everybody had a good time. We had a high energy show, and everybody just enjoyed the music because we were enjoying it, and it was written to be easy to consume, even though there was very difficult parts in it to play. So that it was a great meeting of all these goals.
And as you're saying that, knowing your catalog as well as I do, that's very, very true. I'm thinking about all these catchy, maybe not short, but like 3 to 4 minute long instrumental songs that have all these hooks. Yeah, the amazing playing is there, but they're all really melodic and really filled with cool little hooks, regardless of the style you guys are playing in. Because, I mean, let's be frank, you try to explain the Dixie Dregs to someone because you've got all these musical influences coming in. It's really hard to say, well, the dregs is this or the dregs are that, right? You're kind of like a mix of all these things. But all of the songs on all these albums there are a lot of earworms going on there. So it's absolutely true what you're saying.
Well, well, one other thing that I really enjoyed about the band was the fact that we could go somewhere where we didn't necessarily have a following. Not necessarily. We didn't have a following and play for pretty much nothing. The club would be, oh God, all right, you guys can play here. You can take half the door, but my regulars don't pay, which meant we played for like $12,
Yeah.
total gross for the whole band. And at the end of each night, we would say, does anybody have a living room for us to crash in? And it was like hitchhiking home. We had the vehicle with my station wagon pulling the trailer, but people would always uh, let us, crash in their living room. Everybody brought a sleeping bag and jar of peanut butter each and a loaf of bread each. And so that's how we survived. It was very those early days. Anyway, we would play there and make nothing. But the next time we came back, there was more people. Next time we came back, there was a lot more people. And so we were like, super spreading the popularity only at places we played at. So because of that, I think the booking agents over the years of the Dregs thought that the band could never exist outside the U.S. because that was our pattern was we play somewhere, build up a little following, and keep doing a circuit. But it turns out once I ventured outside the U.S. and a lot of that was with Purple, I found fans everywhere. They didn't buy records; they copied them. So yeah, there was no record sales in all these countries, but there was a lot of uh, you know, blank tapes and CDs with the color not quite matching what it should have been. So we could have had a much bigger career had we stayed together. And
When
had
did
we
you
stayed
guys
together and had that little bit of confidence from management and booking.
when did you guys get invited to the Montreux Jazz Festival the first time? How did that all happen?
I think Claude Knobs was a very eclectic listener, and he was the organizer. And I think he had his ear to the ground for really weird underground stuff.
Yeah.
And Capricorn was pushing Sea Level. Sea Level was a band that Chuck Level from the Allman Brothers started, and Sea Level was going to go over there and play. And I think Capricorn just put this as a suggestion, say, "Hey, you want some jazz, some weird stuff? Here, check out this." And they gave him a little nudge, but the music spoke for itself as being, where else is a better audience than at the Montreux Jazz Festival for
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And so we played one gig there ever, one gig. And they recorded, first take, no go backs, and rented equipment that wasn't working right, and all this stuff, all these handicaps. But we caught an energy between the audience that was fantastic, and so it still exists in the live at Montreux, uh, you know, DVDs and stuff,
It's a good
or
good set.
YouTube's.
Yeah, good set. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So long ago though. So you got so for the tour you got yourself, you got Andy, you got Rod, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for getting me back to the point. Yeah, Andy
Great
West on
stories by the
bass.
way though. That's what I love to
Yeah,
hear.
Andy West bass, Rod Morrison drums, myself guitar, Alan Sloan violin, and now for keyboards for these upcoming tours at least, Jordan Rudess, the amazing Jordan. He actually sat in with us decades ago. In fact, he pointed out that it was 24 years ago that he did a tour with us when T couldn't make it because of some health problems.
Yeah.
So that was uh, that 24 years ago. He was amazing, and I think he's gotten better, a lot better. Yeah,
Oh, it works out perfectly, right? Because I mean, we've all been following. We know the Dream Theater's been in the studio, right? So I think they're
yeah.
kind of wrapping that up. So he goes out and plays with you guys, and then once that's done, Dream Theater tour is probably set to begin. So it's like he's no rest for him whatsoever, right?
There'll be rest because we made these tours really short because I at the time Janine was in remission, we were told, and we're on vigilant watchfulness of that any moment she could go back on chemo. That's what we thought was the any moment that was going to be the result, not just total devastation instantly. But to that end, I wanted to keep the tour short and put a little, some weeks in between, so that if we had to start her on chemo, we could do that. And I was there for everything, and doing whatever I could to help her. And when she was on nutrition by Venus stuff, I was the one hooking that up and taking down her chemo and giving her injections of this or that or whatever. So I really wanted to be there for her. So that's why we did it, these short tours. So it's really going to be three short tours. It's looking like.
Okay. Well, she'll be watching you from above, so
Yeah.
should be looking out for you, all you guys. So
Yeah.
what are we in store for as far as the set list go? I'm going to be at the show up in Albany, New York at the Egg, so I'm really looking forward to this because I haven't seen you guys live in a while, probably since the tour you did with Jerry Goodman. So that's been a while. So
Oh
what
wow. Okay.
that's been
Well,
a while. Probably
yeah.
the '90s, I think, was the last time. Or actually, no, I saw. Well, trying to think. I've seen you, Steve, so many times live between the Steve Morse band and the Dixie Dregs. It kind of it's blurring like which tours I've seen. But I know I saw you on that tour you did with Jerry the first time. But I've seen you a couple times. So anyway, what are we? Just a greatest hits kind of package, I guess.
Yeah, actually, and we toyed with the idea of trying to work up some new material to play. The the problem there was, again, Jordan working on the album and just getting everybody to come across the country multiple times, and there's nothing to fund it with. Nobody's making any money, or not that you would make money from records, but you would normally have money as a budget, which was just an advance of so-called royalties. Those royalties are those fictional um, amounts that
Yeah,
were always in negative numbers because everything that was spent on the album was considered an advance of royalties rather than this is a cost of production that both the record company and the band is going to share. So it's always been weird and one-sided in that way. Anyway, sorry I had to stick that in.
no, it's
But
reality, right?
yeah, that's reality. So, when copyrighted material has less value or no value almost these days, then it's harder, it's harder to justify, saying, hey, everybody, you want to write a check for 2,500 bucks each, and we can record a song, or 5,000 each or whatever, as and people, filming themselves, uh, you know, are filming other people, crashing and wiping out or doing stuff like that on their YouTube channels are making money. Not much, but they're making something. So you can see where all the young people's energy is headed is more towards sensational video as opposed to working on music. But
True.
the guys in the Dregs are not young people. They love they love to do this, and we still haven't given up on the idea of doing some new music. I've got some stuff sketched out, but like I said before, I was also going to be doing an album with Dave LaRue, myself, and Van Romain, the Steve Morse band. So we might split that material. We might use it all for the Steve Morse band. I don't know. It just depends on how the logistics go. Like we have to. Alan is a anesthesiologist who now runs his own pain clinic, and when he's not there, the 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 clinic stops, and all the people working there don't. There's no more money coming in for them to get paid because he doesn't write prescriptions unless he's there checking out the person's, evaluating them. So he has to be there for every visit. And Andy's, um, he lives on the other side of the country. Rod lives way up in New York, and same with Jordan. We're scattered all over the place. So I don't know. It takes some energy to,
To make it happen. Yeah.
yeah. The gigs, however, when people say, "Oh man, you guys, your ticket prices are too high," well, we don't set the ticket prices, but you know, a fraction of that does trickle down to the musician. And after the horrendous amount of expenses that you couldn't even believe unless you've been to the grocery store. Maybe then you could believe it if you've ever been to a grocery store.
Yeah.
But
Right.
everything is that way, not just food, everything costs a lot more. But because of the gigs, because of your support in buying the tickets, we were able to make the multiple rehearsals and travel, multiple rehearsals happen, and therefore do this. So thank you in advance. Well, not in advance. A bunch of tickets have been sold. So thank you for your support, everybody. Live music is that's that's my biggest belief artistically is that live music is a healing force. It's a force that brings people together, and it's it's the common language of all nations.
Yep.
So
I
thank you for
100% agree.
supporting live music.
Well, thank you, Steve. I mean, we the Steve Morse band, the Dixie Dregs, don't come around all that often. So I know a lot of people are excited to see you guys live once again. So, and it's very encouraging to hear that you're considering putting out some new music. I think that's
Oh
great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great
We,
to hear. Great
we
to hear.
already we got some stuff that we could do. We just need to get everybody together, and you know it's a little weird with Jordan being in some pickup band called Dream Theater. Uh, so I forgot. I never heard of him. So oh, he's got a
They got a
lot.
guitar player you might like, Steve. His name is John Petrucci. I think he might be right up your alley. I think. In fact,
John
I think he may have listened to you a time or two in his younger.
John redefines the top of the heap,
Yeah,
when it comes to playing guitar. He's ridiculously good.
yeah.
And the true measure of a musician is he keeps getting better somehow. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. It's very, very amazing. And to know that now Mike is back working with him. I had the pleasure of working with Mike on all the Dream Theater. I'm sorry, I said wrong word.
Flying colors. Yeah.
Freudian slip on all the Flying Color stuff. And I remember calling uh, John Petrucci and said, "Now I know how you do all this amazing music. You had a secret weapon." But Mike Portnoy is the human brainiac. He can just figure out all the different possibilities and remember them all.
Yeah.
Of no, I think then we had this that part was going to be the pre-chorus. That chorus there happens once. Second time it's half as much, but then we're going to change key. Then we got. I have in my studio. I have a whiteboard that a big like 3 foot by 2 foot, and we were doing this long Flying Colors tune, and I just remember going, okay, let me see. I can't remember which part after the A flat section we were going to go into, and Mike was like, "Oh, it's easy," and he just goes, intro, main thing for this riff, and then he would identify the courses by, the first few words that they sang or something like that, and he sketched out in 2 columns all the different parts of the song, and so I haven't been able to erase it since. This was like 10 years ago. So,
That's not surprising. So, I'm happy to call Mike a friend. He's been on the channel many times. I've hung out with him in person, and I don't think I know a bigger music fan than Mike Portnoy. He just lives and
unbelievable.
breathes
His
music.
encyclopedic
Yeah,
knowledge
yeah,
and recall.
yeah, and
Yeah,
passion for it.
what an amazing guy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you put him with John Petrucci, and then let's see, Jordan. Uh, yeah, it's
Yeah. And
it's
they
ridiculous.
grew up together. There's that history there. It's like
Yeah,
they were destined to get back together. I mean, that's why it didn't really surprise me when it happened. I said I knew this was going to happen. Just I knew it.
yeah. Dave LaRue actually got um he invited us to a show. Janine couldn't go; she was uh, sick that night. Um, so I went down to Orlando and watched him, and Mike was playing drums with John Petrucci's solo thing with Dave LaRue,
Yep.
and that's when I saw, they're these guys are getting along, they're reading each other's minds and all this stuff.
Yep.
So I can't believe they're not working together,
Yeah. Yeah. The seeds
and
were
sure
already
enough,
out
they
there
are.
back then. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But Mike is like he's a performer too. He's part of his performance personality was like, I'm not going to tell anybody until this is ready to happen, because I don't want it to leak out. So he didn't even tell me that he was in Dream Theater until like the news was out, which is weird, Like I'm not like exactly the guy plugged into the world. Now, I'm pretty isolated here.
I guess he was just playing it safe. So yeah,
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I hear you.
he's always been that way.
So I
Uh,
want to quickly touch upon Deep Purple. So I mean, you were the new guy in the band. What seems like yesterday, but it's like 20 years ago. And I mean,
20,
you're like the
29
longest
or 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Sorry, I'm that's 20 or 30 years, right? So you was what is it, 29 years? I think you made it, right?
30 years ago, I played first gig, but I was in the band for 28 years.
Okay. So longest running guitar player in Deep Purple and a million tours, some really fine albums. And you stepped away and kind of said goodbye. I mean, was it just kind of even with everything going on with your wife, was it just kind of time? Do you feel like you kind of did what you all you could do in Deep Purple, and was it time to kind of move on to other things, or would you have kind of kept going looking back now?
Well, that's a really impossible question to know the answer to. I I think when you're close to a situation, you don't see it the same as when you're away from the situation. As I've been away for actually now a couple of years,
Yeah.
I can see that I guess my natural inclination and talents and drawbacks and everything just fit the the instrumental and well the stuff I do with Flying Colors, Dregs, and Steve Morse band. All that fits me. Uh, it's an easy fit. That's what I'm saying. And however, I don't think I would have just quit because I thought we were going to go a little more, maybe one more album project and tour and be done. So I wanted to finish with the band. That that was that was my mantra. And I thought by being part of the band for so long that I'd be able to and welcome to be part of things, you know, future events involving Deep Purple, whether they be, you know, a celebration of all the little splinter groups that were associated with Deep Purple, family tree kind of thing. So yeah, I wasn't like saying, no, I'm glad I'm out of here. But um, the situation happened the way it did. And, you know, having stepped back, I think I'm in a better place musically that fits me. And I think Simon is in a, he's fitting them better than I was as far as, they're churning out gigs. And, I was always the guy who says, this is a really long tour. Doesn't, there's a point where tour fatigue comes in. We could make shorter legs. Nobody wanted to hear that, especially not management. But um, I think I think they're exactly where they want to be, and that's you know they're a great rock and roll band, and will continue to make great music.
Yeah, and I think, when you stepped in, for the Perpendicular album, obviously replacing a guy like Richie Blackmore is, no easy feat, but I look at the body of work and I would think that you're pretty proud of what you did with the band for all those years. I mean, especially those last few albums with Bob Ezrin. I'm not going to talk about the covers album. I don't, that's a totally different situation. But those
Yeah.
other albums, I mean, as good as anything Purple had done in decades, in my opinion. And
Well,
I,
thank
I,
you.
I saw you guys. I've seen them with Richie. I've seen them way more with you. Um, and I'll be honest, when I first heard that you had stepped away from the band, I was kind of disappointed because to me, you have been just as much a part of Deep Purple over the last 30 years as anybody else. But I totally understood it. And it's just kind of weird not seeing Deep Purple with Steve Morse at this point in time.
Well, because the band decided to go everywhere they hadn't been, as well as continue to play the places they had been, we met a lot of young people along the way that had never seen the band. So I was glad to be part of that, opening up the access of the world to the band. But I guess with the internet, now that 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 in itself does that job.
Yeah,
but
true.
but back then there wasn't the instantaneous super access to
Yeah,
full shows.
for sure. For sure. And you guys toured a lot. What's
We
interesting
sure did.
too, They just announced that Purple and Yes are going to be doing this run through the states uh, coming up later this year in the late summer. And it's funny, you go on social media and you start reading what people are saying when they announce tours like this. And I remember years ago when you first joined the band, it's like, no Richie, no Deep Purple. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing what, no Steve Morse, no more Purple at this point. So it's just interesting how that happens, how the tide turns after all that time.
Yeah, well, I didn't pay anybody to say that, but I think anybody that goes will see that Simon's a
Yeah,
absolutely great A player,
yeah,
and fits in very well with them. So that's you know you're gonna have, if you like Purple, you're gonna have a good time seeing them, I'm sure.
yeah, for sure. So I know you were probably running long, and I know you probably got to get going soon. But I did one question, well, two questions to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
To circle back on, I've know a lot about your career and stuff you grew up with and everything like that, and you've long talked about like the importance of the Mahavishnu Orchestra and bands like that early on for you. What was it like having Jerry Goodman in the band for those number of years? I mean, that to me, I remember the first time I saw you guys, heard the album and saw you guys live with him, and I'm like, is this really happening? It's like the two worlds colliding. What was that like for you as a player?
Oh, it's cool because it was Jerry Goodman. And I first heard him with a band from Chicago called The Flock.
Yeah,
So that was I liked The Flock a lot.
good band.
So when I saw him, I mean, literally a few feet away from him at the University of Miami, they were playing outside, and the day got rained out, and they set up inside the cafeteria. And I just lucked out and got my little squatter place to sit right in front, like the first person in front of the stage. That was so heavy to me, just to hear the combination. Jerry is an aggressive. He really like plays violin like he wants to be a metal guitar player, and uh, it was great fun because he would love to bounce things off and have duels and things like that. The quite a big difference between he and Alan. Alan has a more traditional violin tone, and that with the distorted or electric guitar, which I try to make a warm sound, uh, blend those two together, and it gives really the I guess goes back to the genesis of what made the Dregs appealing to those people walking by while we were playing in the park. And Jerry was more like the rock and roll, hardcore, uh, high energy, well, like a metal player, and funny, very funny guy, very, very hilarious guy to hang out
Will
with.
we ever see him back playing with the Dixie Dregs again?
I don't know. That's up to him. He's always invited.
Cool.
He's, yeah, he's Jerry.
He's Jerry, right? He's Jerry. So I know you're this is like a selfish request here. I know how much you love John McLaughlin. Are we ever going to see Steve Morse and John McLaughlin play together on an album?
uh, Actually, yeah, maybe we're talking about it, even doing some gigs.
Wow.
The big thing is he's going to want to come all the way. He lives in Nice, France, and when he comes to the U.S., most European people are like, well, that's a long trip. So I don't want to, do just a few gigs and go back. So if it's going to be some super long tour or something, I don't know how that's going to work out for me. But we, the energy is there. He had talked about it when Janine was first diagnosed with cancer, and I couldn't do it. And I was also part of Purple then.
Right.
So we have great mutual respect for each other, and he's the absolute grandfather of the heavy super fusion kind of influence.
He still brings
Everybody
he
knows.
still brings it at his age, man. He's has not
Oh
lost
yeah,
that at all.
he's he's got everything. He's got the stamina, longevity, the musicality, the chops, the grace under pressure or under anything. When I got to tour with him, on that acoustic tour, I really grew to like him.
Yeah, for sure. And he's kind of in his own way, he's helped kind of put Paul Reed Smith guitars on the map because he kind of like reinvented himself using those guitars over the last, however many years. It's been 20 years or whatever since he's been exclusively using those. So it's now you kind of associate John with those guitars now, which is kind of neat, I think. Very, very cool. So, to kind of close out before you go, because we always like when we have someone like yourself on the channel, last minute gear talk. So, any new gear you're playing, anything cool you're bringing out on the road for you with the Dregs and the Steve
Um,
Morse band?
um, since the last time I was out with the Dregs, I got some different stuff. Like I have a box that I can control remotely with any voltage control pedal. It's called the Wetter box, and I think it's from UK. And you plug that into your effects that you want to change the level of, or the mix of, not the level, but the mix in your effects loop. So instead of going to, say, a delay pedal and going from 100% delay to 20% delay, you can do that with a pedal remotely and also with reverb. So I like that because I can get a little bit of air on the tone settings that will tolerate it well. And it turns out that it does a nice job of ducking if I use it in the distorted sense. It kind of disappears if I'm playing really loud and high density notes. I still have the separate wet amp, which has the long and short delay going through volume pedals to control that. And on my guitar, I have the my self-made. It says Ernie Ball because I'm an Ernie Ball guy, and that's on a Music Man. But that's my mute. So when I'm playing with different picking positions that aren't the old uh, way where I would cover all the strings, mute all the strings except for the one I was playing, and keep using my finger and heel of hand as mutes. This acts as all around mute, and you've seen people use the hair scrunchies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the advantage of this is it can be deployed instantly. Like, let me change the angle here. So I can turn on and off for open string stuff. But when I'm playing about high, and I changed to a stiff wrist, which I use a lot for the passive. Then my low strings are not going to run away because they're just slightly damped.
Right,
I can
right.
still play the open string, but it's still damped enough to not run away. And that, anyway, it's just something I made
That's very cool. I
in my
remember
show.
you were showing that when you were on Rick Beato's show a couple months ago, if I remember correctly, which I thought was pretty cool. By the way, that opening tune you played on his show was brilliant. That was a
Oh,
really,
thank
really
you.
nice piece you played.
That's one of our regulars with the Steve Morse band. It's called Vista Grande
Yeah,
and
good
has
stuff.
a lot
Awesome.
of yeah, a lot of different stylistic things mixed together, which I always like. And
Yeah.
I think audiences like it too. I think audiences should be given a lot more credit and opportunities than they sometimes get.
Yeah.
People can tolerate variety. People can handle it.
Variety's
And
good. You can't have every
yeah,
song be too many notes, right? It's okay to throw that in there, but not every song has to be that.
yeah, exactly. And every song can have different styles, different influences. And if you make it melodic and don't make it too much of a struggle to get through the tune as a listener, people will enjoy it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Steve, I hope to meet up with you when you come here to New York, and that's coming up fairly soon, I think.
Yeah, it is.
I know
Yeah.
I've been talking to the PR folks, and we're trying to arrange it so we can come and meet you before or after the show. So I hope to see
Please
you.
do. Please do. You're always invited.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much.
thank you for what you're doing by, uh, you know, helping musicians have another way to reach people and and just shining a light on things. Like you have so much experience of um, being able to to say with some amazing accuracy, this comes from this or this is that kind of thing, and it makes it easier, I think, for people to understand and digest and appreciate the different artists that you're um, spotlighting.
Why we do it. I mean, we love the music and we want to kind of introduce as many people as possible to all this great stuff, whether it be from a veteran like yourself or a brand new band that's just looking for an audience, right? I think it's important. Everybody needs the exposure. And we just find that our audience here on the channel is thirsty for music all the time. Again, whether it be legends or someone who's just starting out. And that's kind of what we're here to do, right? Because I'm a fan just like everybody else. So, and I'm happy to be doing what I do here, and always so happy to have Steve Morse on the channel as always. And if we ever do get that new music, Steve, I'd love to have you back to talk about it.
All right, cool.
So for everybody watching, please go out and check out the Dixie Dregs and the Steve Morse Band out on the road. They're only playing limited dates, so if you live anywhere near where they're playing, please go get yourself a ticket and go check it out. If you happen to be at the Egg in Albany, New York, in just a few weeks, come say hello. I'll be there with Eric Porter, also from In the Prague Seat and 4 Fusion Friday. So visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. For Steve Morse, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you out on tour. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pete.